Hey everybody, welcome to The Kitchen Noob. My name is Peter and I'm an amateur cook making professional recipes. Today's recipe comes from one of my favorite celebrity chefs, Giada de Laurentiis. That's right folks, we're going to Italy. We're going to make rigatoni with steak, and that is accompanied with a nice red sauce. What I like about Giada's recipes is that they're rustic, but they're also very dynamic, and that lends to the authenticity, which I think is very important when it comes to Italian cuisine and culture. Today's recipe, rigatoni with steak, comes from the cookbook Giada's Family Recipes. I will link to that below if you want to check it out on Amazon. So come on back into my kitchen. We're gonna go cook some rigatoni with steak with a nice red marinara based sauce. Come on back. Our prep today is very simple. We're gonna start by dicing our carrot. The recipe calls for 2 carrots, but I have 1 huge one left over, so that should be perfect. Next up is our onion. The recipe calls for 2 onions, which is a little onion heavy for me, so I'm just gonna use 1. I also have a half of an onion left over in the refrigerator, so I'm going to dice that up too and cook it with the marinara to enrich that sauce also. For our garlic, I'm using the smash, peel, and slice technique. We need 6 cloves total. That's going to be 2 for the marinara and 4 for the recipe. As a substitute for dry red wine, I used red grape juice. Now, to dampen the sweetness, I added a little bit of white vinegar, 1 tablespoon to 3/4 cup of red grape juice. Now, I was reading that the vinegar also simulates the aged flavor of wine. I don't know if that's true, but it worked out great, so give it a shot if you want a wine substitute. And lastly, we have our beef broth, that's 1 cup. And the last thing we're going to do for prep tonight is season the star of our show, and that is these beautiful ribeyes. We're just going to add some freshly ground salt and freshly ground pepper. Okay, so here's our setup. We've got our pasta water here. It's filled up about 2/3 of the way. We're starting to boil this now at high. We're on high. When this starts boiling, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of salt to it, and then we're going to put our pasta in. We've got our saucepan here. We're gonna start with our marinara. This is preheating on medium. I've got a little bit of olive oil in here. We're gonna add our garlic and onions and get going on this in a minute. When the marinara is finished, we're gonna slide it back and have it simmer back here, and we're gonna move our main frying pan right here. This is where all the action is gonna be, right here in this pan. When the pasta is done, when the sauce is done, when the steak is done, the onions, the carrots, everything is all mixed up and good. It's all going in this pot, which is why I'm using a higher rimmed pot than like say a skillet, like a lower rimmed or a bowl-shaped skillet. To start our marinara, preheat a saucepan to medium with about a tablespoon of olive oil. When that's ready, add your garlic, add your onions. You're gonna cook this for about 8 to 10 minutes. What you want is a nice caramelized onion and garlic. You don't want to burn your garlic, so make sure your heat stays at about a constant medium. When you're ready, add your crushed tomatoes. That's a 26-ounce can. Just be sure to watch out for splattering. Season with some pepper, maybe about a teaspoon. Next up is salt. I'm using pink Himalayan salt. Again, about a teaspoon. Next up is oregano. You want about a teaspoon or 2. This recipe's pretty foolproof, so if you like a little bit more oregano, that's fine. And basil. You want about a tablespoon or so to sweeten that sauce up. And this is optional, but I put a little bit of honey in this. You can also put a pinch of sugar. I just like honey better. This will also sweeten that sauce up. Give this a good mix, and then we're going to move this to the back burner, cover it, and simmer it on low heat. The sauté pan is preheated to medium-high with about a tablespoon of olive oil. We're going to gently place both of our ribeyes in and cook these for about 3 to 4 minutes aside for a beautiful medium to medium rare. So after about 4 minutes, we're going to flip these steaks. And in the background you get the special treat of hearing Jen distract the dogs. So they must have smelled the meat cooking and they were under my feet and just being a menace. But I also rotated these so that the fat cap was on the outside of the pan, so that got rendered down really nice too. Hey, that's gonna be on the video, you know. Yeah, all that. Because I was flipping the steaks. Okay, so our steak is done. We cooked it the first side 5-6 minutes. Second side 3 to 4 minutes. We're gonna pull them out and let them rest while we cook our carrots and onions. Here's a couple of snack pieces for me. Into our saute pan goes the carrots. And careful splatter now. Okay, that was it. And our onions. Okay. Stir these guys up and saute for a good 8 minutes. You're looking for a nice browning caramelization. A few minutes later, this is what it looks like. This is about perfect. And we're gonna add our garlic and oregano. And give it a good stir. We're gonna let this cook for about 1 minute before we add our grape juice, beef broth, and marinara. Just be careful if you're using actual wine, this might flare up on you. Now that right there is going to create amazing flavor. Cook the grape juice for 1 minute and add your beef broth. The next step is going to be adding the marinara in about 1 minute. Now I need 3 cups of the marinara. And I have a ladle here with a measuring cup on it. So this is 3/4 of a cup is this line, so 3 cups would be 4 of these at 3/4, right? Yeah. 3/4, 1.5, 2.25, 3. Yeah. We can turn this off. This is gonna still stay on. I'm gonna mix the marinara just a little bit just to make sure all it's incorporated there. It's been simmering for this whole time. Okay, now here's 3/4, 1.5, 2.25 or 2.25, and then there's 3/4, but because it was shallow, we're just gonna add a little bit more. You know what? We're just gonna use that whole damn thing. Let's just do it. There's like what, 1/4 cup left in there? Let's just do it. What are we gonna do with that? So Giada used a jar of sauce. How dare she? Which is ironic because this is her marinara recipe. We're gonna mix that in real nice. Okay, so red wine's in here. I'm sorry, grape juice. The beef broth, the marinara. This is gonna simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes while we cook the pasta. Let this simmer on low to medium for about 10 minutes while we cook our pasta. All the flavors will marry and get nice and happy. In the meantime, you can trim your steaks and cut your steaks into nice bite-sized pieces. It's okay if your steaks came out a little rare because they're going into the sauce and they will cook a little bit more. Also, taste your sauce. I found mine to be a little sweet, so I used some oregano to tame that sweetness just a little bit. Our rigatoni and steak recipe is coming together. Our last steps are to add the steak to the sauce, and we can turn the heat off on this and just let these flavors marry together. In the meantime, we're going to drain our pasta, and once our pasta is drained, we are going to combine the meat sauce and the pasta in a large bowl. It will look something like this. So there we have it, folks. There is our steak and pasta from Giada de Laurentiis. Now, I did have some technical difficulties toward the end there. My camera did cut out on me. Basically, the last steps that we missed were draining the pasta and then combining the pasta with the sauce into a large bowl. If you need to, you can reserve a little bit of that pasta water in case your sauce is a little thick. If you thin it with the pasta water a little bit, it'll help with the distribution with the pasta and the sauce in the mixing bowl. Now when you're serving, you'll want to garnish with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, and you can also chiffonade a little fresh basil leaves. That would go very well with this. So I think what I liked most about this dish was it was a nice, dark, deep red sauce. The longer you let it cook and the longer you let the flavors simmer together, the richer and more flavorful that sauce becomes. But it's not a acidic, oily, heartburn-inducing red sauce that you might be used to. It was very sweet and very light at the same time. It was delicious, absolutely delicious. If I were to change anything about this recipe, I don't think I'd really change anything about this recipe. I think you could substitute chicken. I also think that you could use this red sauce for other recipes. Okay, that's all we have for today. That was rigatoni and steak by Giada de Laurentiis. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Be sure to share this video with all of your friends and family. Hit the bell button to receive notifications. Also remember, we have a website, thekitchennoob.com. We also have Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, all of it, The Kitchen Noob. That's where you're gonna find more content that's not necessarily video content. So come and check it out. Oh, and by the way, if you have questions about this recipe, or you've made this recipe, I would love to hear about your experience. Comment below. All right guys, that's it for tonight. Remember, always try something new in your kitchen, have some fun, feel free to experiment. Hope you had fun tonight. We'll see you next time on The Kitchen Noob. Bye. I wonder what that tastes like. Yikes.